Hi, I'm trying to in this video to address the concept of fraud and corruption and highlight specific issues that are a little bit ambiguous for too many people actually, whether they are academicians or professionals or practitioners. The most important point to emphasize at the beginning of this video is that the objective here is just to clarify the ambiguity of the definition of fraud and corruption, and at the same time try to highlight specific related matters regarding fraud and corruption. We are open-minded to address any query that we receive from any audience, any party. Everything we are going to say in this video is supported by relevant literature, reliable literature, and published research. As you know, there is a limit here for the video, so that we cannot go on in discussing too many details about everything we are going to say. First of all, I would like to say that corruption is an economic crime. So corruption is an economic crime, and you will have different definitions, by the way, for corruption. For example, if you'll go to a research paper that has been issued by Adam Salifu from the Department of Development Studies, University of Cambridge in the UK, in a paper that is titled "Can Corruption and Economic Crime be Controlled in Developing Economies? And if so, is the cost worthwhile?" In this paper, actually, I can see clearly that the World Bank has defined corruption in a very simple way when it says corruption is the abuse of public power for private gain. As you can see, this definition is a little bit ambiguous, because when you say the abuse of public power for private gain, it means that you are going to exclude the private sector. Too many people actually defined corruption in different ways. For example, let me take from the same working paper. Corruption has also been defined similarly as the misuse of public office for personal gain. This is mentioned in the paper. Or the misuse of public roles and resources, or the use of illegitimate forms of political influence by public or private parties. This is Johnston, 1997, page 62, in the same paper, by the way. Let me go back to the way. By the way, as you can see here, we can say corruption. Corruption is, or let me say fraud, actually. And corruption in this paper is defined interchangeably. In other words, sometimes they mean by fraud corruption, and they mean by corruption as fraud. And this is very tricky for the reader. So sometimes, yes, they use corruption as if it is fraud, and they use fraud as if it is corruption. You find it everywhere. You can find this everywhere. When we say, for example, corruption is a part of the economic crime, or it is an economic crime, let's say, what we can find here is that there are too many forms of this economic crime or corruption. For example, what kinds of corruption we have? Okay, what kinds of corruption do we have? For example, you have insurance fraud, You have fraud against governments. You have fraud against employers, fraud against consumers, telemarketing fraud, fraud against shareholders and investors, superannuation fraud, bribery and corruption. Just note here, they say bribery and corruption. And there is a reason why they joined bribery with corruption. Money laundering, telecommunication fraud, credit card fraud, industrial espionage, theft of intellectual property, forgery, business opportunity fraud, and electronic funds transfer fraud. And this is, by the way, has been mentioned by Grabowski, 2001, pages 147 to 51. These are clear things that says simply fraud and corruption is the same in the context of, or from an economic maybe perspective. But there has been differentiation between fraud and corruption in different when it comes to other entities or other association or institutes. For example, let me just show you something. If I will look at the report to the nations on occupational fraud and abuse, this is issued by the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners. Okay, this report usually is issued every 2 years. And by the way, they distinguish between fraud and corruption.